At a fairy party, I teasingly kissed a stranger right in front of him, expecting nothing more than a playful reaction, but what I got was much deeper. He took it much more seriously than I expected. It all started as a joke, something playful and harmless, or at least that's what I thought. It was the annual fairy-themed party that my friend Jessica hosted every year. The theme was whimsical and ridiculous, filled with costumes, wings, glitter, and everything magical. My boyfriend Evan had never been the jealous type. We had a solid relationship built on trust and humor, so I figured a little prank would just make him laugh, maybe even spark some playful banter between us. Ron was Evan's best friend, and we all hung out regularly. He was goofy, always cracking jokes, and generally a fun person to be around. That night, I was feeling mischievous. The atmosphere was light, drinks were flowing, and everyone was having a great time. I noticed Evan was across the room chatting with a group of friends, and an idea popped into my head. I thought, just for fun, I'd kiss Ron on the cheek to see Evan's reaction. It would be nothing but a lighthearted joke, something Evan would roll his eyes at, laugh about, and brush off. So I did it. I sauntered over to Ron, whispered something silly in his ear, and kissed him right on the cheek, exaggerating the motion for effect. Everyone around us laughed, and Ron chuckled awkwardly, blushing slightly. I felt a sense of satisfaction, sure that Evan would soon join in the laughter. But when I glanced at Evan, expecting to see him smirking or playfully shaking his head, he wasn't laughing. His face had hardened, and his eyes narrowed in a way I had never seen before. I felt a pang of regret instantly, realizing I may have miscalculated the situation. Ron, however, seemed to take it differently than I had intended. He didn't laugh it off like I expected. Instead, he blushed, smiled awkwardly, and avoided looking at Evan altogether. For a split second, I thought maybe I had gone too far, but I still tried to laugh it off, thinking it would all blow over soon. The rest of the night, Evan was distant. He barely spoke to me. Every attempt I made to engage him, to crack jokes, or nudge him playfully, was met with short responses and minimal eye contact. I started to panic internally, wondering if I had really messed up with my little joke. As the party wound down and we headed home, the tension between us was undeniable. The car ride was painfully silent. When we finally got inside, I asked him directly, "Evan, are you mad about what happened at the party?" He paused for a long time, then finally said, "Why would you do that, Sarah? Why would you kiss Ron like that in front of everyone?" I was taken aback by how serious his tone was. "It was just a joke. I didn't think it was a big deal," I replied, my voice wavering. "I thought you'd laugh." Evan looked at me with a mixture of hurt and anger that I had never seen in him before. "A joke? A joke? You thought it was funny to kiss my best friend like that?" His words stung. I realized then that my little prank had struck a chord much deeper than I had anticipated. What I saw as harmless fun had wounded him in a way I hadn't considered. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Evan. It was really just for laughs," I pleaded. But Evan wasn't ready to let it go. "How would you feel if I kissed one of your friends like that? Would you be laughing?" I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. He was right. If the situation had been reversed, if he had kissed one of my friends, I would have been hurt. I hadn't thought about it that way, and now I was starting to see just how much I had misread the whole situation. Days passed, and Evan remained distant. I tried everything to repair the damage, from heartfelt apologies to grand gestures, but nothing seemed to work. Every time we talked, the conversation circled back to that kiss. It was as though one impulsive act had thrown a shadow over everything we had built together. But the real twist came from Ron. At first, I thought Ron was just as embarrassed as I was about the whole situation, but soon his behavior started to change. He began texting me more frequently, the tone of his messages gradually shifting from friendly to flirty. It started innocently enough, a joke here, a compliment there, but soon it became uncomfortable. He began saying things like, "I've been thinking a lot about that kiss," or "maybe there's something more between us." I was shocked. Ron was my boyfriend's best friend. He knew that what happened was a joke, yet he was acting as if it had meant something more. I tried to shut it down politely, making it clear that I was with Evan and that nothing else could happen, but Ron didn't seem to care. He started showing up at places he knew I'd be, and his cautious remarks became more blatant. I couldn't believe what was happening. Not only had my joke hurt Evan, but now Ron was crossing boundaries I hadn't expected. I realized that my careless act had opened a door I never meant to open. I finally decided to tell Evan about Ron's behavior, hoping that it might bring us closer together and help fix the rift between us. I sat him down and explained everything, showing him the texts Ron had been sending. I expected Evan to be angry at Ron, but instead, he looked even more hurt. "So, not only did you kiss him, but now he's hitting on you, and you didn't tell me sooner?" Evan said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "I didn't want to make things worse between you and Ron," I explained. "I thought I could handle it." Evan shook his head, the weight of it all settling between us. "I don't know if I can handle this, Sarah. I don't know if I can trust you anymore." That was the moment I realized that our relationship might be beyond repair. What had started as a harmless joke had spiraled into something much bigger, something that neither of us could control. A few weeks after the party, Evan and I decided to take a break. We both needed time to process what had happened, to figure out if we could move past it. I spent those weeks in a haze, replaying that night over and over in my head, wishing I could take it all back. I hadn't intended to hurt Evan or to ruin our relationship, but my actions had done just that. As for Ron, I cut off contact with him entirely. Whatever feelings he had developed were not reciprocated, and I knew that continuing to interact with him would only make things worse. In the end, Evan and I couldn't find our way back to each other. The trust that had been broken never fully healed. We ended our relationship on somewhat amicable terms, but the pain of what happened lingered for both of us. Looking back, I realized that some jokes aren't worth the risk. What I saw as a playful act turned into something far more damaging. It wasn't just about the kiss, it was about trust, boundaries, and the unintended consequences of crossing lines you never should.